I was patrolling the jagged cliffs of the Black Hills in Yellowstone at dusk when a hot gust of wind slammed into me, stinking of sulfur and nearly knocking me off balance. My flashlight kicked on, its beam slicing through the growing dark, and that's when I saw them, fresh claw marks gouged deep into a rock face nearby. They looked like something huge had raked through solid stone just minutes ago, jagged and raw. But the ground around me, nothing. No footprints, no snapped twigs, just empty dirt staring back. My heart kicked up, pounding hard, some old instinct, screaming that I'd stumbled onto something bad, real bad. I'm Jake Hargrove, a 43-year-old ranger out here in Yellowstone's wild sprawl. I've spent years wandering these trails, dodging grizzlies and dumb tourists alike. This place has been my home, my escape. But lately, it's felt off, like the air's holding its breath, waiting for something to break loose. That sulfur smell's been creeping in more often, sneaking into my dreams, waking me up in a cold sweat. I'd been spotting those claw marks all over, on boulders, trees, even the metal signs telling folks to stay on the path. I kept telling myself it was my head messing with me, but deep down, I knew something was wrong, way wrong. The wind howled again, hot and nasty, carrying that rotten egg stench that stuck in my throat. I swept the flashlight around, half expecting to catch some animal darting off, but the cliffs just loomed there, silent and still. I've been out here long enough to know the difference between a bare scratch and something else. These marks weren't natural, too deep, too deliberate. Locals down at the bar had been muttering lately, weird lights flashing over the peaks, elk acting spooked, like they could feel trouble coming. I'd laughed it off, chalked it up to old campfire tales, but standing there, that laugh felt far away. The Black Hills have always had a vibe, wild, untamed, but this was different, heavier, like the earth itself was pissed off. My cabin near Old Faithful's been my spot for years, a little wood box where I could shake off the day. Lately, though, every night I'd get back, I'd feel it, eyes on me, tracking me from the dark. I'd check the windows, the door, nothing there, just shadows playing tricks. That night, though, those shadows felt alive. I started back toward the trail, boots crunching on gravel, trying to keep my cool. The air was thick, buzzing with something I couldn't pin down, foreboding maybe, or just plain dread. Those claw marks kept popping up in my head. How the hell does something carve stone like that and leave no trace? I've seen my share of weird out here, lost hikers, wolf kills, but this was next level strange. The wind kept whispering, low and eerie, like it was trying to tell me something I didn't want to hear. My flashlight flickered just for a second, and I cursed under my breath. Batteries were fresh, no reason for it to act up. I've always trusted my gut out here, and right then it was screaming, run, get out, don't look back. But I'm not built to run from a fight. It's why I stuck with this gig so long. Whatever was out there, I needed to know, needed to face it. Then the ground shook, a quick, sharp tremor that rattled my teeth. I froze, beam, darting around, heart slamming against my ribs. It wasn't an earthquake, not the usual rumble Yellowstone throws at you. This was alive, like the earth was shivering, scared as hell. That's when it hit me, the sulfur, the marks, the wind. It wasn't random. Something was down there, deep in the park's guts, waking up. I'd read about the geothermal stuff underfoot, the bubbling pools and geysers, but this felt like something locked away, clawing to get out. The claw marks weren't just scratches, they were escape attempts, desperate and mad. My head spun, picturing fire and smoke, some old demon busting loose. I wasn't just a ranger anymore. I was standing on a cage and the lock was breaking. Night dropped fast, swallowing the cliffs in black, and that's when it got weird, really weird. The ground shook again, harder, knocking me to one knee. I could feel it, a pulse, deep and slow, rising up through the dirt. Then came the growl, low, guttural, bouncing off the rocks like a warning shot. My skin went cold, every hair standing up. I spun around, flashlight shaking in my grip, but the dark just stared back, empty and mean. I've heard plenty out here, wolves, cougars, but this wasn't animal. It was something else, something old. My legs screamed to bolt, get back to the cabin, barricade the door, but I couldn't move, feet stuck like the ground wanted me there. The path back felt endless, shadows twisting around me, alive and sneaky. My granddad's stories came crashing in, Wendigo tales, that skin and bones monster that hunts fear itself. I'd laughed as a kid, called it bullshit, but now it was clawing at me, real as the sulfur choking my lungs. Then she showed up. Sarah, the new wildlife biologist, stepping out of the trees like a ghost. I damn near dropped my light, heart jumping into my throat. We'd met a few weeks back, her all bright-eyed about the park, me just trying to keep up. Now, though, she looked wrecked, pale, eyes wild, like she'd seen the devil. "Jake!" she yelled, stumbling over, out of breath. I felt it, the shaking, that growl. Thought I was losing it, but she trailed off, glancing back at the cliffs, twitchy. "Did you see anything?" I asked, grasping for something solid, something to explain this mess. "No," she said, shaking her head fast. "But the animals, they're freaking out. Elk won't leave the high ground. Birds are gone. They know something's up." Her words sank in, heavy and cold. We weren't imagining this. It was real, and it was big. Sarah's voice trembled, but her eyes had this fire, like she wasn't ready to quit. "We've got to tell the others," I said, urgency kicking in hard. "Get everyone on the same page before this blows up," she nodded, fierce now. "I'll hit the visitor center. People need to know." She turned to go, but a loud crack split the air, like a rock snapping in half, and I grabbed her arm, yanking her back. "Wait, we stick together." She glared for a second, frustrated, then softened, fear creeping in. "Jake, this is bigger than us. If it's what I think, we're running out of time." The ground bucked again, violent, and I saw it, a faint glow seeping up through cracks in the dirt, pulsing like a heartbeat. "We've got to figure this out," I said, keeping my voice steady even as my insides churned. "If we don't, we're toast, everything we care about." Sarah's jaw tightened, matching my stubbornness. Then we move, together. We headed deeper into the park, sulfur thick in the air, fear riding shotgun. The cliffs loomed bigger, darker, like they were closing in, and I knew we were stepping into something massive, something that could break us. My flashlight flickered again, unsteady, throwing wild shadows across the trees. The air stung my nose, acrid and hot, like we were walking into a furnace. "You hear that?" Sarah asked, stopping short, head tilted. I listened, whispers, faint and creepy, weaving through the branches like a bad dream. "Yeah," I said, pulse racing. "What the hell is it?" She shook her head, spooked. "Feels wrong, like it's pulling us in." Then I saw it, a shimmering light between the trees, pulsing slow, like it was alive. It hit me hard, dragging up a memory I'd buried deep. I was 8, camping with my folks out here, listening to Granddad's Wendigo stories by the fire. I'd wandered off, chasing a light just like this, found a cave. Then nothing, just a blank spot in my head. "Jake?" Sarah's voice snapped me back. "You good?" I swallowed, throat dry. "I don't know. Something happened to me here, way back. Never told anyone." The light flickered, insistent, and that growl ripped through again, loud, close, shaking the ground. I spun around and there it was, tall, skinny, eyes glowing in the dark, straight out of those old tales. My breath caught. This wasn't a story. It was real, standing right there. "Sarah, run!" I yelled, but she didn't budge, stepped forward instead, eyes locked on it like she was under a spell. "Jake, wait. I need to know what it wants." The earth shook harder, and I grabbed her shoulder, panic spiking. "What's wrong with you? That thing's a monster." She turned, eyes wild but steady. "Maybe, but I feel it, Jake. It's tied to us." The whispers turned into a howl, and I knew we weren't just facing some beast. This was us, our past, coming back to bite. That glowing thing stared me down, hollow eyes digging into my head, pulling up stuff I'd locked away. Kid fears. That night I went missing, all crashing in. "Sarah!" I shouted, voice cracking. "We can't stay. It's gonna kill us." but she stood there, caught by it, like it was talking to her. "Jake, it's showing me something. Something big," she said, her eyes shining weird. I stumbled. As the ground bucked again, shadows exploding around us, swirling, screaming, turning into faces I knew. Old buddies, family, people I'd let down. They were all there, pissed and hurting. My chest tightened. This wasn't just the Wendigo. It was everything we'd buried coming up for air. "Sarah, we've got to face this," I said, desperate. "Now, it's not just it, it's us," she nodded, grabbing my hand, grounding me as those ghosts closed in. "I'm sorry," I yelled at them, tears burning my eyes. "I screwed up. I didn't mean to leave you." The air shifted, softening, like they heard me. Sarah squeezed my hand. "I've got my own ghost too. I'll face him with you." The creature howled, mad as hell, but we stood firm, together. The light flared up, bright and wild, drowning out that howl with a rush of wind. Shadows twisted, fighting back, but I felt something shift, hope maybe, cutting through the dark. My younger self stepped out, scared and small. "You left me," he said, "and it broke me." "I didn't want to," I choked out, facing him down. We were in it now, past and present smashing together, and I wasn't running anymore. Sarah's grip tightened, her voice steady. "We're not backing down." The forest pulsed around, us alive and angry, but we held our ground, ready to rip the truth out of this nightmare, whatever it took. That light kept pulsing, pulling at me, and the creature loomed bigger, skinny, twisted, all rage and hunger. My head was a mess, memories slamming into me, fear from that kid night when I'd blacked out in the cave. "Sarah, we've got to move," I yelled, but she was stuck, staring it down, like it was spilling secrets only she could hear. "It's not just a monster," she said, voice low, eerie. "It's us, our past, everything we've run from." The ground shook again, and those shadow faces surged. My old man, buddies from the service, all glaring, all blaming. I felt their weight, every mistake I'd made piling up, choking me. "What the hell do we do?" I asked, voice shaking. Sarah turned, eyes fierce. "We own it. Face it head on." She stepped up, shouting into the dark, "I've messed up too, I'm sorry." Her voice cracked, but it held power. I nodded, sucking in a breath. "Me too, I'm done hiding." The creature snarled, lunging, but I yelled back, "I screwed up, I'm sorry." Raw, loud, meaning it. The air warmed just a bit, and those faces softened. Hurt still there, but less sharp. The light flared brighter, pushing the shadows back, and I felt Sarah next to me, solid as hell. "Together," she said, and I nodded, "Damn right, together." The Wendigo thrashed, but we didn't flinch, staring it down as the forest roared around us. The creature's howl turned desperate, echoing off the cliffs, but that light was winning, bright, hot, cutting through the dark. Shadows started, peeling away, my younger self fading slow, eyes less scared now. "You're letting me go," he whispered, and I nodded, throat tight. "Yeah, go rest." Sarah's grip stayed firm, her voice joining mine. "We're letting you all go. Rest easy." The faces, my old man, the guys I'd lost, they flickered out, one by one, like candles snuffed. The creature staggered, shrinking, its glow dimming fast. I felt lighter, like something heavy was lifting off me, piece by piece. The ground settled, tremors fading, and the sulfur stench started to clear. "We did it," Sarah said, half laughing, half crying. I looked at her, wild. Hair, fierce eyes, and nodded. "Yeah, damn near killed us, but we did." The cliff stood quiet now, just rock and wind, no more pulse underneath. But something lingered, a faint buzz in the air, like the park wasn't done talking. "Think it's over?" I asked, catching my breath. Sarah shrugged, wiping her face. "For them, maybe. For us, who knows?" I glanced back at where the light had been. Gone now, just trees and dirt staring back. The night turned calm, stars poking through, the heat fading into a cool breeze. We stood there, catching our breath, the black hills stretching out silent. Around us, Sarah leaned against a rock, looking beat but alive. "That was insane," she said, a shaky grin breaking through. I chuckled. "Rough. Understatement of the year. My legs felt like jelly, but my head was clear. First time in days, maybe years. They're gone, I said, testing the words. The ghosts, the thing, whatever it was. She nodded slow. Yeah, but it took a piece of us with it, didn't it? She was right. Felt like I'd left something out there, good or bad. I couldn't tell. We started back toward the cabin, moving slow, the crunch of gravel underfoot the only sound. You think it was always here? Sarah asked, glancing at the cliffs. Under the park, waiting? I shrugged, thinking of Granddad's stories. Maybe. Sleeping until we pissed it off. The cabin came into view, a dark shape against the trees, and I felt a pull. Home, maybe, or just a place to crash. We've got to tell someone, I said, half serious. Sarah snorted. Who'd believe this crap? Demon claws and ghost lights? We got inside, and I dropped into a chair, the weight of it all hitting me hard. Sarah grabbed water, handing me a glass, her hands still shaky. You ever think about that night? The cave? She asked, quiet. I nodded, sipping slow. Yeah, never. Fit till now. Guess it marked me. She sat across, staring at the table. I've got my own stuff, things I've buried. Felt it out there, too. I met her eyes, worn but strong. Guess we're both messed up, huh? She laughed. Soft. Yeah, perfect team for this shit show. The quiet settled in, cozy almost. The cabin's creaks filling the space. It's not over, is it? I said, more statement than question. Sarah shook her head. Nah, the park's got more secrets. We just scratched the surface. I leaned back, the claw marks flashing in my head. Deep, real, a warning. Outside, the wind picked up, whistling through the trees. Not sulfur now, just air. We'll be ready, I said, voice steady. Whatever's next. Sarah grinned, tired but game. Damn right, bring it on. Till our morning crept in, gray and slow, light spilling over the cliffs outside. I stood at the window, coffee in hand, watching the park wake up, birds chirping, a deer darting off. Sarah was still crashed on the couch, snoring soft, looking peaceful, for once. I felt it too, a calm I hadn't had in forever. The marks were still out there, carved into stone, a reminder of what we'd faced. You think it'll come back? Sarah mumbled, stirring awake. I shrugged, honest. Maybe, but we've got its number now. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. Good, 'cause I'm not running next time. We packed light, heading out to check the trails. Business as usual, almost. The air was clean, the sulfur gone, but I kept an eye on the shadows, just in case. We're tougher than we look, I said, half choking. Sarah smirked. Damn straight. Park's got nothing. On us. Yellowstone stretched out ahead, wild and quiet. But I knew it. Knew the secrets it held. The stuff we'd pulled out of the dark. We'd faced it once, walked away. Scarred, sure, but standing. Whatever came next, we'd be ready. Me and Sarah, the rangers who stared down the abyss and didn't blink. The day rolled on, sun climbing high, warming the dirt underfoot. We hit the cliffs again, slower this time, checking for signs, marks, lights, anything off. Looks normal, Sarah said, kicking a rock. I nodded, but my gut stayed tight. Normal didn't mean safe, not here. Yeah, for now, I muttered. We stopped at the rock face, those claw marks still there, deep and ugly. Proof it wasn't a dream. Think it's watching? She asked, half serious. I ran a hand over the stone, feeling the grooves. Maybe, waiting to see what we do next. She grinned, sharp. Let it wait, we've got shit to do. The park hummed around us, geysers puffing, wind rustling, alive, but quieter, like it was catching its breath too. We changed it, I said, thinking out loud. Set something. Loose, or locked it down. Sarah shrugged, easy. Either way, we're still here. Counts for something. I looked out over the hills, the wild sprawl I'd called home forever. It wasn't just land anymore, it was a fight, a story, ours now. Yeah, I said, voice low, counts for a lot. We'd walked through hell, come out the other side, tougher, maybe wiser, definitely not done. If you liked this story, smash that like button and subscribe for more creepy ranger tales. Share it with your buddies, let them feel the chill too. Drop a comment, What freaked you out most, or what do you want next? We've got more dark corners of Yellowstone to explore. But someone's hiding this. Someone doesn't want it out. Before I could answer, a rustle froze us, loud, close, and way too real. Elena stood there panting, her words still hanging heavy. That rustle, it wasn't wind. A figure stepped, out, rugged, wild, eyes burning with something not quite human. "Leave this place," he barked, voice raw, slicing through the dark. My heart slammed against my ribs. He wasn't just some guy lost in the woods. He moved closer, shadows curling around him like smoke. "You don't know what you're messing with," he growled, pointing at the bloody tree. "You're waking. Forces you can't control. Stop now." His glare pinned me, magnetic and terrifying, like he was part of this place. Its anger made flesh. I glanced at Elena. She was pale, gripping my arm, just as caught as me. "Who are you?" I stammered, trying to sound tough. "Why should we listen?" He didn't blink, just stared, hard. "I'm the keeper of balance," he said low and deep. "And you've tipped it." His words hit like a brick. Balance, blood, something big I'd stirred up. "The blood on that tree," he went on. "It's a call. Spirits, restless ones hear it. You're letting them out." My mind flashed to my dad, his stories, his obsession with this forest, how he vanished chasing it. Was this tied to him? "Your father," the keeper said, like he read my thoughts. "He woke something too, digging where he shouldn't. Now, it's on you." My chest caved. Dad gone all those years, leaving me this mess. Elena's eyes softened, pity creeping in. "You never said," she whispered. "You've been carrying him alone?" I swallowed hard, the past crashing in. "Didn't think it mattered till now," I muttered. The keeper's face tightened, like he felt it too. "Your blood's bound here," he said. "His legacy woke it. You're finishing the job." It wasn't just guilt, it was a curse, and I was stuck with it. Elena jumped in, voice sharp. "Then we find what he was after, put it back to sleep." The keeper nodded, grim. "Maybe. But others want that power, won't let you dig easy." Others? My gut twisted. More players in this, hunting what I'd stirred up. The ground rumbled, low and mean, like the forest agreed. Whispers turned to shrieks, loud and wild, swirling around us. "Too late?" Elena asked, panic sneaking in. I shook my head fierce. "Not yet. We've got to try." But shadows moved, fast, dark shapes slipping out from the trees. They came closer, eyes glinting like broken glass, hungry and alive. "Ottavio!" Elena hissed, stepping back. I pulled her behind me, heart racing. "We're here to fix this," I yelled at them, voice shaking but loud. "You're done controlling this place." The lead figure, a tall, dark blur, laughed. Cold and sharp. "You? Threaten us?" he sneered. "You're a kid playing with fire." I stood taller, anger burning through the fear. "I'm no kid," I shot back. "I'm taking this back. My dad's mess. My fight." The ground shook. Again, trees swaying like they were pissed too. The figures froze, unsure, and I felt it. Something shifting, spirits maybe, waking up with me. "Hear that?" I shouted. "They want justice, and I'm not shutting up." The lead guy's smirk flickered. Good, let him sweat. One lunged, fast, shadowy, and I yanked Elena down as it hit me. We rolled, dirt in my mouth, forest roaring around us. "Get up!" I yelled, scrambling. "We fight!" Adrenaline kicked in, raw and hot. Time to face these ghosts and my own. "Elena, the tree!" I shouted, shoving through the chaos. "It's the key!" We bolted, shadows chasing, their snarls mixing with the wind. This wasn't just Dad's legacy anymore. It was mine, and I'd either stop it or go down swinging. The lead guy's voice echoed, taunting. "Run all you like. You can't escape what you are." His words stuck, heavy, but I kept moving. Elena beside me. Whatever was coming, I'd meet it, not as a kid, but as the guy ready to rewrite this damn story. We crashed into a clearing, the air thick and buzzing. That ancient tree stood there, roots twisting like they were alive, pulling me in. I turned to Elena, breathless, her eyes wide with fear. "This is it," I said, half sure, half crazy. "We tie into this. Maybe we stop it." She nodded, shaky, glancing back at the shadows closing in. "What if we can't?" she asked, voice cracking. I grabbed her shoulders, locking eyes. "We don't fail. We believe in us, in this fight." Her jaw tightened. She was in, scared or not. I stepped up, hands on the bark, warm, pulsing, like it knew me. I shut my eyes, digging deep, pulling up Dad's voice. His lessons, his warnings, all that weight he left me. The forest answered, vine snaking toward me, wrapping me in. This was it, my shot to take control. The lead figure burst in, his crew behind him, sneering. "You think you can wield this?" he spat. But the ground shook hard, roots shooting up, grabbing them. That stormy night hit me like a gut punch I didn't see coming. I was out in Biała Vieja forest, rain hammering the trees when my radio crackled. Sharp, weird, not the usual static. I'm Ottavio, 39, a ranger who spent years trekking. These woods, but that sound, it wasn't right. Voices slipped through the noise, low and garbled, muttering in some old language I couldn't catch. "Blood that awakens," they hissed over and over, and I froze, rain dripping down my neck, realizing I wasn't alone out there. Next morning the storm had eased, but the sky stayed heavy, gray as a bruise. I headed out to clear a fallen tree blocking a trail, routine stuff, or so I thought. My chainsaw growled to life, biting into the wood, and I felt this vibe in the air, like the forest was holding its breath. Then it happened. One deep cut, and red poured out, warm, thick, alive. I stumbled back, the buzz of the saw drowned. By those radio whispers still echoing in my head, I'd been in these woods forever. Knew every twist, every route, or at least I thought I did. At 39, I'd logged years here, jotting down plants, animals, swapping stories with folks in Gravenhurst and Bracebridge. Old pagan tales about spirits and souls? I'd shrug them off. Folklore for campfires, not facts. But lately, my radio had been picking up stuff no one else heard, muffled voices weaving through static, calling me like they knew my name. The trees, some 1,000 years old, started bleeding after that. Deep cuts in their bark oozed red, like they were screaming. I couldn't shake it. The forest felt heavy, alive, pressing down on me. The air buzzed with something old, like echoes of priests chanting rituals lost to time. I'd crossed into something blurry, where past and present mixed, and the line between alive and gone started fading. Days went by, and those voices got louder, sharper, like they were pissed. Blood, sacrifice. They'd rasp, desperate, tugging at me. The ground pulsed under my boots, answering them, and I figured it out. These weren't just trees. Something ancient was trapped inside, waking up every time I cut one down. My job was to protect this place. But now I wondered if I was the one letting something dark loose. My past crept up too, heavy and cold. Years back, I'd lost someone. Close. Accident, quick and brutal. And that pain never left. Now it mixed with the forest's whispers like they knew my grief, used it. Was I picked for this because of that? This old sad place choosing me to see its ghosts wake up? The thought stuck, gnawing at me. Night rolled in again, and the air got thick, tense, like a storm brewing inside the trees. The whispers turned, musical, haunting, pulling me in. I stood at the clearing's edge, telling myself it was just wind, but I knew better. My grip on what's real was slipping, and I couldn't pretend anymore. This was happening. Then I saw it, a flicker of light deep in the woods. Every part of me said, run back to my cabin, lock the door, but my feet moved forward instead. Branches snagged my jacket, shadows swallowing me up as I pushed through. The whispers egged me on, louder, and there she was, by this massive old oak like some kind of guard post. Elena, the local historian, stood there, moonlight catching her dark hair. She'd drop by my station sometimes, spinning wild tales about spirits and rites. Her eyes were big, scared but curious. You heard them too, huh? She whispered, stepping closer. I nodded, feeling her intensity, like she'd been waiting. For this? Who are they, Elena? I asked, my voice rough. What do they want? She took a breath, serious as hell. Guardians of the land, she said. Asleep for centuries, until something woke them. We've got to figure out what before it's too late. Her words hit me hard, shaking my doubts loose. I wanted to argue. Folklore's just stories, right? But I glanced at that blood-soaked tree from earlier, and my skepticism cracked. I've always brushed this stuff off, I admitted, but something's real here, and I can't explain it. Elena nodded, steady. Then we team up, dig deeper, protect this place. We pushed into the dark, but I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on us. Shadows twitched between the trees, alive, and the whispers turned frantic, mirroring my own panic. I wasn't ready for this. Every answer I chased just made the forest push back harder, like it didn't want me prying. Elena's voice cut through, sharp, urgent. Ottavio, look! She was kneeling by the oak, dirt churned up like something clawed out. A symbol, an old one from her stories, was carved into the bark. The blood that awakens, she gasped, tracing it. A warning, something evil's tied here, trying to break free? My throat tightened, panic clawing up. What do we do? She looked at me, fierce but scared. Get the townsfolk. They need to know what's at stake. I held steady, pouring everything into it. Anger, grief, whatever I had. You've taken enough, I roared. This ends now. Light exploded, bright, blinding, swallowing the clearing. Roots tightened, shadows screamed, and I pushed. Harder, feeling the forest back me up. Then, nothing. Silence hit, sharp and complete. I dropped, knees in the dirt, drained but alive. Elena ran over, pale but grinning. We did it, Ottavio. We freaking did it. I caught my breath, grabbing her hand, but my eyes caught the shadows, still there, faint, whispering. Not over, I said, steady, despite the shake in me. There's more to this. The keeper stepped out, face grim. One threat down, he said low. But the dark's roots go deeper. Others'll come, drawn to what you woke. I nodded, heavy. Knew it wasn't finished, just paused. We'll be ready, I told him, firm. The tree swayed, calm now, but alive with secrets I hadn't cracked. Elena squeezed my hand, fierce. Whatever's next, we've got it, she said. I nodded, damn right we did. This wasn't just survival. It was claiming what's ours. We turned back, path stretching ahead, the forest buzzing soft around us. Whispers lingered, tales of old fights, losses, wins that didn't last. I felt Dad there pushing me on, not a ghost to haunt me, but a spark to keep going. Shadows flickered. Tricks, maybe, or hints of what's coming. It's a cycle, I muttered, half to Elena. Keeps coming back. She smirked, small but real. Then we keep fighting, together. That was it, our deal, our stand. The air chilled, unease creeping in, but I didn't flinch. Dad, I whispered, hope you're watching. No answer, just the forest humming, alive and waiting. We'd won this round, but the next was out there, brewing. Every step felt heavier, the legacy sinking in. Not just his, mine too. We'll figure it, I said, more to myself. Elena nodded, steady beside me. Bet your ass we will. The fight wasn't done, just starting, and I was all in. The woods stretched, endless, whispering secrets I'd learn or die trying. This wasn't over, not by a long shot, but with Elena, with this forest, I'd face it. Shadows, spirits, whatever came. We weren't running, we were rising. Hey, if you like this creepy ride, smash that like button and subscribe for more. Share it with your buddies. Let them get spooked too. Drop a comment, favorite scare, want more forest horrors? Tell me, I've got shadows to spare. The sun was dipping below the Rockies' jagged peaks when I started wondering if reality's just a thin curtain hiding something awful. I'm Emile Desjardins, a 34-year-old ranger at Banff National Park, and this is my tale. scary horror stories. Park ranger style, I spent years here, snapping pics of the wild, green trees, clear lakes, endless skies, finding purpose in it all. But that night, during my rounds, I saw flickering lights up on the mountains, glowing like ghostly lanterns, pulling me in despite the dread sinking into my chest. I couldn't shake that creepy thought. What if there's more out there, just out of sight? Those lights danced, teasing me with their weird shine, and I had to know more. My boots crunched on the trail as I headed toward them, camera slung over my shoulder. Banff's always been my safe spot, but lately it's felt off, like something dark's crept in. I've been at this job long enough to know every twist of these paths, every rustle of the wind. The park's beauty used to calm me, fill me up with peace, but now something's changed. I'd found deer carcasses twisted up in ways that didn't make sense, like life got sucked right out of them, leaving messed up shells behind. That evening, chasing those lights down a rocky slope, I tripped over one. A deer, legs bent all wrong, eyes wide and glassy, reflecting those damn lights like mirrors to nowhere. My heart slammed against my ribs. Something was out here with me, and it wasn't friendly. I froze, staring at it, feeling the wilderness. Turned cold and strange, I grabbed my camera, hands shaky, trying to catch those flickering lights. But every shot came out blurry, distorted, like they didn't want to be seen. I've documented tons here, always clear as day, but these? They mocked me, slipping away from my lens. For weeks I'd been tracking this weirdness, the lights, the dead animals, looking for answers. Nothing added up. Banff's trails, ones I'd walked 1,000 times, felt like they were hiding stuff now, like the mountains themselves were keeping secrets. The locals talk about old legends, ancient beings that roamed before us. I used to roll my eyes at that stuff, thinking it was just campfire tales. But lately I've been wondering, climate change digging up old altars, waking something up maybe. Those lights weren't just tricks of the eye. They felt alive, watching me. I could sense it, a heavy vibe that pressed down on me every day, like I was being sized up. My gut churned. Whatever this was, it wasn't here to play nice. The wind started whispering low and creepy, like it was talking to me. I'd hear tremors underfoot, tiny shakes that made my skin crawl. Something ancient was messing with the wildlife, twisting it, using it, and I was starting to think I might be next. I kept pushing forward that night, drawn to the lights despite every instinct screaming to turn back. Banff wasn't my refuge anymore. It was a puzzle box, and I was stuck inside, fumbling for the edges. My pics were useless, but I couldn't stop snapping them, hoping one would come out right, give me a clue. The lights flickered faster, reds and blues mixing in, like they were laughing at my dumb little camera. The deer's glassy eyes stuck with me, a warning I couldn't shake. I felt alone out there, but not really. Something was close, waiting, and it knew my name. My sanctuary was turning into a nightmare, and I didn't know how to fix it. Every step toward those lights felt like walking into a trap, but I couldn't stop myself. I stood there, staring up at the mountains, dread and curiosity fighting inside me. Night fell, and that's when it all went sideways. Something I couldn't explain. Not then, not ever. The lights went wild as darkness swallowed the park, shifting from soft yellows to deep reds and blues, pulsing like a heartbeat. I stood at the clearing's edge, frozen, the cold wrapping around me like a wet blanket. Then I heard it, a voice, low and rumbling, cutting through the trees. "Emile!" it said, clear as anything. My legs wobbled, and I almost tripped over. That damn deer again. Was I cracking up? I've always been the guy who keeps it together, who sorts fact from crazy. But that voice, it was real, like the mountains were calling me out. I wanted to bolt, get the hell out of there, but something pulled me closer, like a moth to a flame, dumb and doomed. My breath hitched as I scanned the shadows, looking for whatever said my name. Then I saw her. A woman stepping out of the dark silver hair flowing, eyes glowing like the lights. She felt familiar, like I'd known her forever, but that didn't make sense. You shouldn't be here, she said, her voice soft but heavy with warning. Who's watching? I stammered, barely getting the words out. My head spun. None of this felt right, but I needed to know more. They come for the clueless, she said, glancing up at the lights. The forest's waking up, and it picked you. You've got to get the balance before it's too late. She turned to leave, fading into the shadows like smoke. Wait, I yelled, desperate. What's with the lights? The dead animals? No answer, just me, alone again with that creepy glow. Her words stuck, rattling around in my skull. Balance? What did that even mean? But I felt it, a spark of something, a need to dig deeper. I couldn't do this solo. I needed help. Next day, I called Clara, a local historian I'd met at park events. She's big on old tales, spirits of the land, all that jazz. I figured she might know something. Clara agreed to meet me at the station that night, excited but worried. I set up my projector, ready to show her the blurry pics, proof I wasn't nuts. The sun dropped, and she showed up, eyes wide. You've seen them, she said, voice shaky. Those lights, they're tied to the old spirits. They're pissed off. My heart thudded. Pissed off? Why? What do they want? I asked, leaning in, needing her to make sense of this. Nature's messed up, she said, frowning. Climate stuff, people pushing in. It woke them up. We've got to fix the balance, or it's bad news. I doubted myself. Me, a ranger, fixing something this big? But before I could argue, Clara's face went white. Emile, they're here, she whispered, gripping my arm. The lights flared up, bright and wild, painting the forest in crazy colors. The air buzzed, thick and electric, pushing me to run, but Clara held me tight. Stay with me, she said. Steady despite the fear in her eyes, I nodded, guts twisting. What now? I asked, voice low, staring at the glow like it might eat us alive. We face them, Clara said, fierce. Let 'em know we see them, we get it. Her words sounded nuts, but I trusted her. Had to. My grandma's old stories hit me, land guardians demanding respect. I'd laughed them off as a kid, but now? Maybe she wasn't spinning tales after all. The lights went blinding, a single beam that made me dizzy. Memories slammed into me. Kid me running here, laughing, then screaming, like a movie gone wrong. Emile. Focus! Clara snapped, yanking me back. I blinked, head spinning, trying to grab onto now, not then. Something dark bubbled up, a memory I'd buried. I think I lost someone here, I mumbled, the past clawing out of me. What? Clara asked, soft but sharp. I swallowed hard, the truth spilling out. Tommy, my best friend, gone in these woods when I was 12. He vanished. I said, voice cracking. Never found him. What if this is all tied to him? My chest hurt just saying it. Before I could say more, the lights merged, shadows twisting into shapes. People, maybe. I felt pulled, like they were reaching for me. Emile? Don't, Clara yelled, but I was caught, sucked into a vision. I was back in the woods, a kid again, watching Tommy run, terrified. Help me! Tommy's voice screamed in my head, real and raw. I panicked. Was this now or then? I couldn't tell. I spun to Clara, her face pale with dread. We've got to go, she said, urgent. They're not just spirits. They're worse, and they want what's lost. The ground shifted, air heavy with doom. Tommy's fate was alive, tangled with now, and I knew we were running out of time. The light pulled me hard, like it wanted me inside it. Clara's fear was loud, but mine was louder. I'd lost Tommy once, and I wasn't letting go again. Emile, stop, she screamed, but I was moving, sucked into a swirl of colors and shadows that messed with my head. A kid appeared, Tommy, pale and scared. Help me, he yelled, shaking the ground. My heart stopped. Was this him? Tommy? I whispered. But his eyes were off. Not my Tommy, something else wearing his face. A trick, maybe. I'm trapped, he shrieked, the forest rumbling with him. Break the curse. His voice cut through me, begging. I looked at Clara, wild-eyed. What curse? I shouted, but she was pulling me back, desperate. Don't let him drag you in. I fought her grip. No, he needs us. I need answers. I couldn't leave. Him? Not again. Not like this. "It's a trap," Clara cried, voice breaking. "He's not Tommy anymore, he's theirs." Her words hit hard, but I wasn't sure. As she yelled, the shadows turned ugly, laughing through the trees. Tommy's face twisted, a mask of pain. Not my friend anymore. "Help me," he wailed. But it wasn't just him. Other voices joined, a chorus of screams. The air crackled, reality bending. "Focus, Emile!" Clara's shout pulled me back. "Fight or run. Don't let them take you." She was my anchor in the storm. I got it then. I had to face Tommy's ghost, my guilt. "I'm here," I yelled into the dark. "I remember you. I won't forget." The shadows froze like I'd hit a nerve. Tommy's eyes flickered, real for a second. But was it enough to break through? The air shifted, ground cracking under me. I had to choose now, and it'd either save us or doom us both. My shout hung there, and the chaos paused, like the forest was listening. Tommy flickered, smoke and sadness, his eyes begging. "I remember!" I yelled again, louder, heart slamming. Clara held me tight, keeping me real, but I was slipping, past, and now blurring together. Tommy's face softened, almost him again. "Help me break free," he whispered, faint now. The shadows hissed, pulling back like they hated my words. They lunged at me, dark ropes around my legs. I thrashed, panic rising, but Clara yanked me hard. "Fight together," she shouted. I thought of Tommy, our laughs, our runs, not this. "Twisted thing. We're here, Tommy," I roared, pushing against the dark. With everything, my words hit like a spark. The shadows screeched, twisting wild. Clara's eyes burned with grit, and we shoved back together. The boy reached for me, shadows peeling off him. A light blasted out, blinding, and I shut my eyes, bracing. When I opened them, we were back, forest quiet, air thick. Clara panted, beside me, pale but tough. "We did it," she said, unsure. The boy was gone, his cries echoing soft. I sucked in air, wiped out, searching for something, anything, to prove it. "Is he free?" I asked, throat raw. Clara shook her head, shaky. "I don't know. This place ain't done with us." Then I saw it. A locket in the dirt, warm in my hand. I popped it open. Tommy's pick, smiling, secret in his eyes. "We woke something," I muttered, dread sinking in. The locket pulsed, tied to the forest's alive beat. Clara grabbed my hand, firm. "We've got to figure this out, Emile. It's not over." I nodded, chills creeping up. The shadows whispered as we turned to go, past and present, tangled, pulling us deeper into whatever was next. The forest buzzed again, tense and waiting. The locket burned in my hand, but something else felt off. Clara's eyes flickered dark. "Clara?" I said, gut twisting. She smiled weird, too calm. "It's beautiful here, Emile. The light through the trees, you see it?" I stepped back. "What are you talking about?" Something wasn't right. Her vibe was shifting, wrong. "Everything lost," she murmured, voice silky. "We can have it back, free of shadows, if we join them." The locket heated up, thumping like a pulse. Clara's face glowed, shadows hugging her like a second skin. "Join me," she said, soft and scary. We'd be more than ever. She wasn't my Clara anymore. The dark had her. I yelled, "No, we can't forget Tommy." But she was gone, swallowed by shadows, her eyes cold and strange. "You'll see," she said, smooth as poison. "You'll join the shadows too." The dark swirled, reaching for me. I had to choose, fight her or give in. The shadows sang, promising peace, tugging at my heart. "Clara!" I screamed, but she was lost. The dark grabbed her fully, and I felt it, tendrils whispering freedom to me. I knew I couldn't run. The shadows already had a piece of me, from Tommy, from guilt. I was part of this now. Their pull was sweet, too sweet. I shut my eyes, letting the void take me, giving up the fight I'd started. As I opened them, the forest stood still. But I wasn't Emile anymore. I was darker, theirs, the shadows, new blood. Days blurred after that. I wasn't me anymore, just a shadow wearing my skin. The forest felt alive, part of me now. I walked the trails, but not as a ranger, more like a ghost, tied to the lights that owned me. Banff wasn't home. It was my cage. The locket stayed with me, Tommy's face a quiet taunt. I'd lost him, Clara, myself. all to this damn place. Nights were full of whispers, shadows talking in tongues I half knew. They welcomed me. But it wasn't warm, just cold truth. I saw the lights every dusk, reds and blues calling me deeper. No dread now, just a pull I couldn't fight. Deer still died, twisted and empty. I didn't flinch anymore. I was part of that, part of the dark's game. My camera sat dusty at the station. No point in pics now. The lights didn't blur. They were me, clear as day. I'd think of Clara sometimes, her smile before the shadows took her. She was right. We were more, but not better. The mountains loomed, ancient and smug. They'd won, and I'd let them, too tired to care anymore. Tommy's voice faded, a memory I couldn't touch. I'd tried to save him, but I'd just damned us all instead. The forest breathed with me, alive in a way I hated but couldn't. Escape. I was its pulse, its shadow now. I stopped fighting, stopped caring, let the dark flow through me. It was easier that way, quieter. People'd come to Banff, clueless, and I'd watch, knowing what waited. I didn't warn them. I couldn't. The lights danced on, and I danced with them. A meal no more, just a piece of the Rockies' endless dark. The park went on, seasons spinning, but I was stuck. Time didn't mean much anymore. Shadows owned me, plain and simple. I'd see rangers sometimes, newbies like I'd been, and feel a pang. Old Emile, lost under this new skin. The locket hung heavy around my neck. Tommy's pick, a weight I couldn't ditch. It was all I had left of before. Clara's voice echoed in quiet moments, soft, dark, calling me to her. I joined her, like she said, but it felt hollow. Nights were my world now, lights pulsing, shadows thick. I moved with them, one of them, no fight left in me. Deer carcasses piled up, and I'd pass them. Empty shells like me, drained by whatever ran this place. I'd stand on peaks, staring at the glow, feeling it in my bones. Banff wasn't wild anymore. It was a tomb, and I was buried in it. The whispers grew loud, telling me secrets, old things, angry things. I listened, numb, part of their story now. Tourists would snap pics, laughing, blind to the dark. I'd watch, silent, knowing they'd never see what I did. My old life, ranger, photographer, felt like a dream I couldn't wake from. The shadows were real. That Emile wasn't. I'd hear Tommy sometimes, faint and far, crying for help I couldn't give. Guilt stayed, but it didn't burn anymore. The forest and I were one. Its heartbeat, its eyes. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. Just was. The lights led me deeper each night, and I followed. No choice, no will. They were my masters now. I was Emile once, a guy with a camera and a purpose. Now, just a shadow, drifting in Banff's endless dark. Years, or what felt like it, passed, and I stopped counting. The forest owned me, and I let it, too far gone to care. I'd see my reflection sometimes in icy lakes, hollow eyes not mine anymore. The shadows had remade me piece by piece. Tommy's locket stayed warm, a cruel reminder of what I'd lost or given up. I'd stare at it, feeling nothing. Clara'd appear in the glow sometimes, silver hair, dark smile, promising more. I'd nod. We were the same now. The lights never dimmed, reds and blues guiding me through the dark. I didn't question them, just followed, empty. Deer died, trails twisted, and I wandered, part of the cycle, part of the curse I couldn't break. I'd hear whispers of new rangers, fresh faces chasing lights. I didn't help, couldn't. They'd learn or fall like me. The mountains stood tall, watching, waiting. They'd seen it all, me, Tommy, Clara, and they didn't care. My old station rotted, pics fading on the walls. I'd pass it, a ghost in my own past, tied to this now. The shadows sang, low and endless, tales of power, loss, hunger. I was their voice, their echo. Banff wasn't a park anymore. It was a prison, and I was its prisoner, its keeper, its shadow. Tommy's cries stopped one night, and I felt it, a hole where he'd been. I didn't cry, I couldn't. I stood under the lights, letting them fill me. Red, blue, dark. Emil was dead. This thing lived instead. If you liked this story, hit like and subscribe for more. Share with your friends. Bring them into the dark. Comment your favorite bit or what ending you'd want next.